If you've ever thought, why do I keep having the same fight no matter who I'm with? Well, I want to let you know you're not crazy. But I am going to let you in on a little secret. It's because you're replaying your childhood. Doesn't matter. You can pick a different partner, pick a different house, be in a different chapter in your life, but it's always going to be the same emotional movie. And what is it that's in that movie? You feel unheard, and they feel criticized. You feel unseen, and they feel attacked. You feel abandoned, they feel overwhelmed. So, what do? You escalate, they withdraw. You shut down, they get louder. You panic, they defend. You pursue, they distance. Doesn't matter what they flip those dynamics. It's always the same. And every time you try to talk it out, what happens? With every partner and every person, you end up in the exact same loop and nothing changes. So I'm going to answer the question nobody really has ever answered for you. Why the heck does this keep happening? Well, it's because the pattern isn't really about the two of you today. It's about the emotional blueprint both of you learned way back then, in childhood. The reason is, every emotion we ever experience was a learned construct with the construct and definition in childhood. And all we're ever doing is bringing the childhood emotion into the present, because none of us have been taught about emotional authenticity and how to stop that process. Well, I'm going to show you how all of this works and give you some clues and little tips on how to start turning it around. So what I want you to recognize is, in this adult moment, your partner isn't creating the wound. What they're doing for you is they're revealing it, and you're doing the same for them. And that's because in every adult emotion, because like I said, it was learned in childhood. So when you're fighting as adults, all you're doing is replaying the exact same unhealed, painful moments both of you had in your past. Now I know you're like, Kenny, you're crazy. I'm really upset and we're arguing about the tone that they use with me, or that the dishes aren't being done, or the bills aren't being paid, or they're lazy, there's not enough intimacy, they work too much, whatever it is. And you're right, they do all those things. I'm not saying they don't. But those things, the things, aren't what is actually hurting you. It just feels that way. You see, those events have, and the reason you're reacting to them is those things create the exact same emotional blueprint as the unhealed events from your childhood. And that's why you're having such a reaction. Both of you are having such a reaction, and that's why neither of you is creating the wound in each other. Both of you are revealing the wounds within each other. So the pain comes from what those moments meant to you emotionally as a child. So your fights are revealing. On one side, one person, it's their childhood abandonment, while the other one, it's their childhood shame. Maybe on this side, their childhood invisibility. There's the childhood pressure. Your childhood fear, their childhood overwhelm. It doesn't matter what it is. Every conflict, no matter what's going on, it's just two emotional blueprints being activated at the exact same time. And there isn't anything or a situation or dynamic where this isn't more clear than the classic pursuer-distancer dynamic. Now, every relationship, there's, this dynamic is at play. And there's nothing wrong with it. You can have one who's primarily a pursuer and one's primarily a distancer, but you can also have people within a relationship flip roles at different times. So I'm going to put language to both sides of this and show you that what you're going to see is, in every relationship, like I was saying, there's always one who's pursuing and one distancing. And the reason is, the pursuer grew up in their childhood, the emotional blueprint that they got was they needed more connection than they got. So their blueprint says, if I don't chase, I'll be forgotten. Or if I don't fix this, I'm going to lose them. Or if I work harder, maybe they'll love me and stay. So they come closer. They're not trying to attack. I know it feels that way when they're elevated and they're needing that attention. But they're coming because they're looking to feel safe. Now on the other side, the distancer, they grew up with way too much emotional intensity. So their blueprint says, if I withdraw, I won't be overwhelmed and suffocated. If I stay quiet, maybe I won't be judged. Or if I shut down, maybe the storm, the emotional storm will just pass and they'll forget about it. So what do? They pull away. Not to punish the pursuer, but to survive. Because that's what they had to do in childhood. So do you see what we have here is two survival strategies at odds with each other. And neither side knows that they're reliving their childhood and that they're in their survival strategies. So one pushes, one pulls. One escalates, one disappears. Not because you're incompatible, but because your childhoods are colliding. So once you see that, it opens up the door to really the real work, not just, fixing communication or trying little, skill tests. But finally understanding that for both of you, the feeling underneath the fight, like that's what we're going to get to. Because the thing isn't what you're fighting about, it's the feeling. So both of you are focusing on the words or the action in the moment of the other person. But the pain that both of you are experiencing is in the past. You're both hurt by the feeling underneath the thing. You're not fighting about being late. You're fighting about fear, shame, abandonment, invisibility, rejection, overwhelm, powerlessness. This is where the emotional authenticity method that I developed comes in. And it's going to show you how you're reliving your childhood moments in the present. And it's 3 simple questions. What am I feeling right now? Where in my body do I feel it? What's my earliest memory of this feeling? Just watch how this changes everything and how you're going to be able to start navigating fights. Now, I know you think you're angry because they were late, but I want you to slow down and I want you to ask yourself, when they're late, what do you feel? Maybe you feel abandoned. What do you feel in your body? It's a tightness in your chest. And now the big one, the 3rd question. What's your earliest memory of having this exact same feeling in your body and this thought that says, I'm going to get abandoned? Well, was it when your dad used to forget to pick you up from school? Now it makes perfect sense why your reaction is so big. Or they think they're annoyed you brought something up again. You see, underneath for them, and their annoyance is, I feel like a failure. There's a pit in my stomach. And my first memory of this is being told I never did anything right. See, when a couple sits across from each other and they start to get angry, upset, have an emotional reaction, and they both go, whoa, we need a timeout. What am I feeling? Where in my body do I feel it? What's my first memory about this? And now the two of them reveal, oh, you sound like my dad. I sound like, wow, this is about this. So do you see, your child cells are reacting to the wound in the past. And so once the wound is activated, something very predictable turns on in the background that most people aren't aware of. It's what's called your worst day cycle, another process that I discovered. And it's the emotional loop both of you are caught in. And it consists of 4 elements: trauma, fear, shame, and denial. All of us go through trauma. Trauma is any negative emotional experience. Well, we had thousands of those in childhood. So the original emotional injury could have been a parent leaving. Maybe there was a divorce. Maybe there was yelling or criticizing. Maybe it was shutting down or ignoring. But your body remembers what it felt like. And that feeling became a part of your emotional blueprint. Let's move into stage 2, fear. So in conflict, that old danger from the past gets reactivated, brought to the present. You're not just scared right now. You're scared in the same way you were back then. Think of it. And this is what's hard for people, is they've forgotten how scared they were as a child when mom and dad fought, when somebody was late, when somebody didn't show up. All the perfectly imperfect human moments that parents experience and scare the living heck out of a child. We forget the emotional resonance. And that's why the emotional authenticity process brings us back to it and gets us in touch with it, because that's what we need to do to get out of this. And so now that we're aware of the original fear, now we look at the shame aspect. And that's when shame steps in, and in that moment it might have said something that you heard or felt from your parents, or just said inside yourself. I'm the problem. I'm too much. I'm not enough. I have to fix everything, or I have to shut down and stay safe. This is where, like as a child, both of you built survival personas. You did it to mask the pain and to survive. And that leads us into the fourth stage, denial. It finally shows up. It's not you lying. It's an emotional anesthetic you could think of. It's putting distance between how big those childhood moments were and what your parents said or did. And in that moment, you have to make sense of it. You have no other option. So denial teaches you to say, you know, what mom and dad just said or did, it's not that big a deal. And then as an adult, it sounds like, you know, this isn't about my childhood. Nah, that has nothing to do with it. That's crazy. My childhood was great. Denial. We just need better communication. Or, Kenny, it's not that. My partner's just dramatic. And I'm fine. I don't need any of this. You see, denial, the reason denial comes up is it's there to protect the authentic child self that's in both of you. It's in all of us. And it was there before the pain was. And so the denial pops up so that authentic self side of you never has to feel that original helplessness again. So in the moment as an adult, or when you're experiencing this, that survival self, because that's what happened, the transition between shame and denial, you developed a survival self to protect the authentic self. And that survival self is now running your life as an adult. And that's what's showing up in your fights. And so the survivor self pursuer chases harder, and the survival self distancer shuts down more. Not because either one of you are trying to hurt each other. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with each other. It's only because your blueprints are fighting for survival. Neither of you are reacting to this moment. You're reacting to every single moment that ever felt like this one. You're bringing all of those moments from the past into this present moment. All of that unhealed pain that your survival self has been carrying, that's what's showing up. And so what both of you are doing is putting the face of your perpetrator onto your partner. The perpetrator could have been a parent, teacher, coach, brother, sister, doesn't matter who it is. But those painful moments are now running the show through your survival self. Neither one of you is adult right now. You're in your pain. And so you're not arguing with your partner, you are both arguing with each other's past, which is also why all the usual tools that feel good in theory and then fall apart in a real fight. So what do most couples try when they've had this issue? You know, they run through scripts, or they take time outs, or they do breath work or meditation or walk away or countless other things. And sometimes they might help in the moment, but underneath you're still feeling it. That blueprint is still running. That survival self is still fighting, wanting to be angry and continue this fight, or stuff it and never deal with it. So what happens? Every time, eventually that blueprint button gets pushed and everything collapses. And why is that? Because those communication skills won't work when you're in your worst day cycle. That cycle is taken over. And emotional intelligence won't help you either, because emotional intelligence doesn't even tell you that all your emotions are childhood emotions. They're just trying to get you to cover over what's happening in the moment. It's really a suppression technique to not get present to what's really happening to either of you, because they're not giving you the skills and tools to deal with the root of your emotion. And that's why you don't end up with any emotional intelligence, because all emotions were learned in childhood. And that's the difference between emotional intelligence and emotional authenticity. Emotional intelligence deals with how to cover over the emotion in the moment. Emotional authenticity deals with the root and how to heal it and change it and get it to stop working against you and teach you how to get it to start working for you. And that's why I developed the emotional authenticity method. Because what it does is it shows you that the original moment from your childhood, that blueprint moment, is running in the present moment. And you can't skill your way out of a blueprint. You can only heal your way out of it. So that's why tools aren't enough. And so what actually changes the pattern, this is where my other process, the authentic self cycle, comes in. So what I do is I help my clients use 3 frameworks: the worst day cycle to see the pattern, the emotional authenticity to find the root, and the authentic self cycle to change the pattern. And here's what that looks like in real life. You bring up something that hurt you because you're scared of losing the relationship. So your voice gets sharper or faster, not because you're attacking, but because you're terrified of being abandoned again. Your partner feels that intensity and hits their blueprint as danger. So what do? They shut down, not because they don't care, but because they were overwhelmed or blamed as a child. So your pursuit makes them feel unsafe and inadequate. Well, you're not responsible for making them feel. Let me say that differently. Your pursuit triggers their lack of safety and the shame of feeling inadequate. They create that emotion inside themselves because in that moment, what you're doing looks exactly like back here. Remember, they're taking the past and bringing it forward. So they're shut down. You then now experience your childhood and you feel unseen and unimportant. So what you have is 2 wounded children trying to protect themselves. One is trying to avoid being left. The other one is trying to avoid being overwhelmed. Now, watch the shift that's going to happen when we apply the authentic self cycle. Step 1, truth. You have to name the blueprint. You have to realize this isn't about today. And so you use the 3-step process of emotional authenticity. What am I feeling? Where in my body do I feel it? What's my first memory? Well, let's see. Feels like when I was a kid. Yeah. I can feel that. It feels like I'm being abandoned again. It feels like I'm not good enough. And see, the truth, by getting into seeing that original moment, the truth breaks the denial of the worst day cycle and exposes and shows us the survival selves that we had to develop, which means you stop fighting about the dishes and you start seeing the wound. And that moves us into step 2, responsibility. And this is where we start stepping back into both our authentic self and our adult self. And we recognize, oh my God, my partner isn't my parent. My nervous system and my emotional blueprint just thinks they are. And it's not my responsibility to fix them or take care of them. But it is my responsibility to heal the pain from my past so I can see my partner's face and not my parents'. You see, responsibility isn't about blaming, and that's what happens in fights. You guys are blaming each other. Responsibility is about ownership of, oh my God, I'm not even seeing my partner, I'm putting my perpetrator's face on them. I need to own that, so I take ownership of my side. I take ownership of my emotional world. I take ownership that, wow, I'm not to blame. No one ever taught me this is how emotions work. I did the best I could with where I was. But by doing that, the child survival self is no longer driving the car for us. And when we take responsibility, we move to the next step, healing. This is where we commit to doing the healing work to rewire the emotional blueprint, and we gently retrain our emotional blueprint definitions. So conflict all of a sudden becomes uncomfortable, but not dangerous. Space doesn't mean I'm being abandoned, and intensity doesn't automatically mean I'm being attacked or smothered. And so this is where you stop reacting from the fear in both your past, and you start responding from the truth in the present. And when you do those three things, that moves you into step 4, forgiveness. And this is where you start to reattach to your authentic self, because from here you can forgive yourself for how you had to survive. You can forgive the child who just did the best they could and didn't know any better. You can reclaim the adult who does know better. And that's when the blueprint starts changing. That's when the fights change. That's when the relationship changes. And that's when your authentic self returns and replaces the survival self. So the truth is, for both of you, neither of you are broken. You've just been fighting your childhoods. That's all any of us are doing. We're just fighting our childhoods our entire lives. So it's about recognizing I'm always valuable and worthy, and I'm not to blame. I can only be blamed if I made a conscious choice to do this. But you are never conscious to the fact that you had a survival self with a hurt emotional blueprint that was running your life and having these fights with the people in your life. You can't be blamed for doing something you weren't even aware of. You did the best you could with where you were at the time. And as we know more, for the first time in our life, we get the chance to choose if we want to learn how to do more and how to do something different. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to check out more of my stuff, books and all, or work with me individually. Or maybe you just know somebody. Maybe you have a friend or family member who's constantly fighting, and you just want to send them this video and go, look, I think this might solve your problem. But whatever it is, I hope this helps you make sense of the unsensible and that you're not crazy. And now you understand your fights can end as long as you understand what's really starting them.